So welcome everyone to today's Shaman's Directory live session. And I'm going to take just a minute to tell you a little bit about the directory before I introduce our guest today. So Shaman's Directory is an online global portal for shamanic services. And one of our visions is to make shamanic healing and teaching available to anyone, anywhere who might seek it. And you can find us on shamansdirectory.com and on social media at Shaman's Directory. And one of the things that we really have been enjoying doing with this time is introducing you to members of our directory. And today we are really excited to be able to introduce you to Sandy Corcoran. And I'm going to do a little introduction of Sandy. So Sandy is the author of Shamanic Awakening, My Journey Between the Dark and the Daylight. She is a therapeutic Thoth tarot reader, a trained integrative coach, a cross-cultural metaphysical teacher, a designated dream decoder, which I am eager to hear about. And her greatest delight is to bring passionate learners on pilgrimages to experience the magic of Egypt, the wisdom of Peru, and the Magdalene and Black Madonna mysteries of France. And I have to say that I am about 3/4 of the way through her book, and she has had such an amazing journey. So as you're listening to Sandy, I just want you to know that you can make an appointment with her to work with her one-on-one through the directory, and you can also find out more about her on her website, starwalkervisions.com. So welcome, Sandy. Thank you so much for spending some of your day with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I would just like to start today's session. Many of your clients have probably been trained in the Peruvian tradition or other traditions where I'd like them to start by just centering themselves. So just take a couple of cleansing breaths, close your eyes, shake off the morning wherever you are. Take a couple of deep breaths in and exhale. And then in the Peruvian tradition, there are two channels. One is called Saman Chakwi, and the other is called Saiwa Chakwi. And one is bringing down the energy, the light from above. So just breathe that down through your body, grounding it out your feet. And then from the Earth Mother, pull up the energy on your next breath and send it out the crown of your head to your oversoul self. And then just take one more deep breath, centering yourself in your heart. Know that whatever questions you have, if I can't answer them, I'll be honest, but I love questions, so don't hesitate. And when you're ready, just open your eyes. So most of what I'm going to be sharing with you today is about the dream time. And it's the perfect time of year of that because we're moving into solstice. And solstice is a time when, at least in the indigenous cultures and in the pagan cultures, it was a time to slow down. It was a time to find balance, whether that's winter solstice in the north or summer solstice down under. In the winter months, though, it's the perfect time for going into the dream time, into the hibernation time, into the stillness, and kind of reassessing what's happened to us throughout the year. And so one of the important things in that context is the dream time. And most of what I'm going to share with you today, although I will share some pieces from some of my other indigenous teachers, came from grandmother Twylah Nietzsche. And grandmother was my main mentor for about 14 years, specifically teaching me about the dream time, but many other things as well. So she's a Seneca elder, and in her particular clan context, she came from the Wolf clan. And They were the philosophers and the teachers of her people, and she could trace back 7 generations, those who came before her that were the philosophers that imparted the oral tradition to her. The Seneca people were one of the Iroquois confederacies, and in fact, our Constitution is based on the great law of peace that they shared when the settlers first came. So how did I get to Graham? Well, we all go through periods in our life where we hit very dramatic or traumatic situations, and that was the case for me. And when my particular kind of dark night of the soul happened, Native American women started coming out of the woodwork. And, you know, I'm this blonde suburban woman at the time, and I wasn't quite sure what was happening to me, but I realized now it was for me. She was not my first teacher. My first teacher sent me to her. And my path to her was kind of difficult to find. I had heard about her before. She was a very wise woman. She was quite an elder at that point. And she was supposed to be teaching in a place close to me that was very prominent at the time for workshops. So I thought, great, my first teacher is telling me to go to her. I have found where she's going to be. I called the center and asked for a ticket, and they said that they had to cancel. So immediately I was like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to do this, because of course we all cross-question ourselves when things like that occur. Anyway, long story short, they had a telephone number on a pamphlet, and they didn't know where the telephone number directed them to, but they gave me the number on the chance that I might be able to kind of dig deeper and find her. When I picked up my phone and dialed, it didn't ring. It went straight to this elder fairy voice that was also very strong at the same time. And she said, well, it's about time you call me. I've been waiting for you. And I was kind of thrown back on my heels, because it was another one of those situations that I hadn't anticipated and was kind of magical to me, Anyway, at that point, I started teaching with her. And one of the primary things she discussed as she brought me through the clan teachings was that she recognized me as a dream decoder. And I didn't know what that was, but the way she explained it, it was somebody who was able to understand archetypes and symbols and be able to help other people in a counseling fashion to decode their dreams. Because she felt that dreams are a really important source of spiritual and practical guidance. Can you still hear me? Okay. And that she felt Great Mystery had given everybody the dream time as a gift of peace, and that all creations dreamed. Animals dreamt. She believed rocks and plants dreamt in different ways than us, but still they had an extent. I can hear a lot of beeping on my side. Are people coming in and not muted?
People are muted. I am hearing a little bit of beeping, but it might just be that you're getting email coming in or something on your, no.
No, I'm
Okay.
shut off. Okay. All right, I'll keep going.
You might just be getting a little dinging sound when somebody comes on, because I've noticed that people are coming on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so most indigenous cultures had a dream structure, because it really provided them with a reality or a sense of framework for understanding and interpreting their world and their place in it. So from an indigenous perspective, there were kind of 3 functions around the dream time. So the first one was it provided an explanation of creation, kind of how the universe came into being and everything in it. And then secondly, it provided kind of a blueprints that all living forms were created to be able to utilize. And then it also created laws for living, moral codes, laws for living, and provided kind of social interactions and relationships. So everybody dreams between 3 and 6 times a night. A lot of people don't remember their dreams. And later on in the uh, morning, I'm going to teach you some ways that I was taught to possibly remember your dreams and bring you into the different stages of dreams, bring you into different types of dreams, and maybe a meditation towards the end where you can find your dream ally. So at this point, even though I've only spoken briefly for a moment, does anybody have any questions on Graham Twylah or how I got into this practice?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat at the moment.
Okay. So one of the things for me that was really important that she taught me was the universal cycles of truth and the pathways of peace. And these are what she called wisdom wheels. They're based on medicine wheels. And medicine wheels aren't about healing, they're about consciousness. And so when we think of past, present, and future, we're on like a linear timeline where, we can't change the past. We're open, but sometimes afraid of the future. Very seldom are we in the now, are we centered? And it's only in that place of center that we can connect to spirit. So a lot of her teachings were how to dissolve the triggers that pull me to the past and how to imagine and intend what I wanted to have in the future. But I could only do that in the now. So there was a lot of practice and there was a lot of repetition. One of the fun parts for me in the teachings was the fact that I had had a dream ongoing since I was a little girl. And that dream was about a mountain that I would go to and I would feel such joy. And in the course of study, I realized it was the mountain of Machu Picchu, Huayna Picchu, the mountain behind Machu Picchu. And when I was done my teachings with her after 14 years, she instructed me, and this was early 90s, to go to South America and start teaching us, start learning with the men. So I've had this swath of like 35 years of teachings from North, South, and Central American elders, most of who have passed at this time, but each one of them gave me another droplet for the dream time. And that's what the dream time is. It's a droplet of consciousness that comes to you to help you unwind your waking state so that you can become more conscious in this illusionary and delusionary and fast-paced techno world that we all live in. So let me see. I guess I'd like to go into the types of dreams she suggested. I think that would be a good place to start.
Great.
So the initial dreams that we have at night, and we about every 90 minutes we're moving into the dream time. But the first dreams we usually have are those that kind of take us through what's happened during our day. So they're kind of like digesting the emotions, the practicality, the triggers, everything that's happened during our day. And these need to be put out of the way so that we can move into a wider understanding or wider perception of the luminous space that we're in when we're in the dream time. And I'll give you some things to do later on when I tell you some of the suggestions of how to dream, how to get those out of the way first. It's not that they're garbage dreams. I don't want to imply that, but they kind of take up space in our dream time, whereas our dream time can be really rich. So the second one is called conscious dreaming. And most of you might know that as lucid dreaming. So this is where we're active participants in the dream, where we get to question different aspects of the dream or direct different aspects of the dream. It's not an OBE. OBEs are different. Out-of-body experiences are different than lucid dreams, but there's similarities to both. Then we have what she called crossover dreams. And these dreams can take us into inter and multi-dimensional spaces where we can learn from other beings, other vibrations, other energies, other than our 3D experience. And really, even though we're in these 3D bodies, we're more than just this. We are already inter and multidimensional beings moving into ascended mastery. We see time, like I said before, past, present, and future, very linear. They see time as a spiral. So at any point on the spiral, you can move up or down. It's sort of akin to, if you've studied in the Peruvian tradition, that line that goes from dense to refined energy. It's all energy, but at any one point, given our circumstances, we're going to find ourselves someplace on the spectrum. Then we have past life dreams, and these were important because they can really help us understand our karmic patterns so we don't repeat situations that we've contracted to come back to in this lifetime and learn how to move past. They're like generators or energetic hooks that hold us to an old format, belief system, or way of reacting. Then we have clarity dreams. So these have the potential to help us detach from the things in our everyday world that hold us from our infinite potential. And these are important because all dreams give us the freedom to transition in death. And that's why the dream in the native tradition was called the little death. Because what we're always trying to do is become more conscious in those interdimensional and luminal spaces so that we're able to disattach from the physicality, from the illusions and delusions that hold us here. But the way in and out of that is through our sensorials. That's why in the dream time, many people see colors, they have different smells, they have different sounds. It's because it's our sensorials that are the barometers of information for the energy that we're perceiving in the world. And then we have nightmares. I'm sure many of you have experienced nightmares. And the way she explained those is nightmares are our higher self's way or our dreaming self's way of trying to get our attention. So I'll give you an example because I use the dream time a lot in my counseling practice. So I had a woman who was deathly afraid of snakes. She would lose it if she saw a snake in the real time. Even pictures made her so anxious. And she had dreams all the time about snakes. They were always in her dreams. They were chasing her in her dreams. She would open a cupboard and they'd be in her dreams. So she really had this thing with snakes. Well, snakes, if you think of the archetype of snakes, they're about transmutation. They shed their skin so that they can become something different. They're very close to the earth, so they hear the heartbeat of the mother. They're able to help us transform. You think of the Egyptians, they wore the uraeus, the cobra on their crown. So one of the things in nightmares that Graham suggested I do was to instruct myself, if I had them, but instruct others who I was working with. In the stakes practice, this is not going to happen the first time, is to turn around and face the beast, the gremlin, the snake, the darkness, whatever it is that's chasing you, and ask it what it wants. Because everything in the dream is part of you. And I'll get into this more later too. So if you dream of mom and an old boyfriend and somebody else, they are who they were in the dream time, but they're also an aspect of yourself. So after numerous times of dreaming about this and waking up in a cold sweat, this woman was finally able to stop in her dream and turn around and face the snake. And she asked the snake, "Why do you keep chasing me?" And the snake said to her, "Because you don't love me." And she said, "What do you mean I don't love you?" Now she's becoming lucid. She's having a transaction with this archetype in her dream. And he said, "Because you won't change. You know you need to change and you won't change." And she was going through a very difficult situation with a partner. She probably should have divorced well before she did. But when she realized that, it clicked. It clicked what she was doing to herself. And not only was she able to negotiate getting out of a very aggressive marriage, but she was also able to then transmute the way she had been doing her life and become something different, more joyful, more healthy, more happy. She never had a dream about a snake again. So the nightmares are really positive. They're only the places we haven't brought our light yet. It's kind of like our shadow self. The shadow isn't there to hurt us. The shadow isn't there to frighten us. The shadow is just there to show us where we haven't brought our light yet, because that's what we are. We're light beings. Okay, I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions thus far.
I don't see any questions.
Okay.
Everyone's engaged. I do see people taking notes.
Okay. So dreams are here to help us become more conscious of our process of embodiment. And like I said, we're more than just these bodies. We're beings of light. In fact, we're mainly light and water. And if we could see ourselves with different eyes, there's a lot of space in between what we think is solid. But in the dream time, mainly what comes up to help us bring consciousness is symbols and archetypes. And Carl Jung spoke a lot about this. There's the personal, the individual reason for the dream, but there's also the collective reason for the dream. So what you dream about, it's important that you start almost writing your own dream dictionary. This is what she had us do. And as we decoded, or as I decoded the dream, because she was teaching me this individually, I would say to her, well, it reminds me of this, or it has to be about that. And she would say, is that really the way you want to say it? So I had to carry a thesaurus around with me for 14 years, because if it wasn't the right word, because words have power of their own volition, okay, think in the beginning, there was the word, which is sound, which goes through the void, which creates something, okay? And the dream is our void, and we're trying to create something out of the dream. So decoding became very important. Another example, she would have us carry baby books, baby name books, because if we dreamed of Michael and we didn't know Michael, well, what did Michael mean? That would give us more information. And then the two main tools that she had me use, as I said earlier, were the cycles of truth and the pathway of peace. So the cycles of truth, as they're laid out on a wisdom wheel, there are 13 points, so 12 around the outside and 13 in the center. And this is what she brought into written form out of the oral traditions of her people. She and her mother, Blue Flower, created these wisdom wheels to help teach people like me what certain things meant. So at each point on the wheel, there's a month, a number, a color, a definition, and a word. And universally, they all make up the moral code of truth that we're all here to exercise and learn. But just like in an astrological chart, so those of you who have had your charts done, you know there are 12 houses and there are certain planets. And if those planets are in certain signs, they indicate something about you. Well, in the same way, we have a personal pathway of peace. It's kind of like our blueprint. And that's based on a whole bunch of things that I don't want to get into. But essentially what it does is tell you what your individual definition, colors, numbers are, and how you work through your gifts of birth, the gift of faith, the gift of loving and overcoming obstacles, the gift of your intuition, the gift of right will, the gift of creativity, the gift of magnetism, which she defined as calling to yourself the people, places, and things that help you grow corn, and releasing from your world the people, places, and things that don't help you grow corn, which is a very important thing that we're all moving through right now. And the gift of the dream time, which is about having gratitude and finding inner wisdom. Taking those two charts helps you decode your dreams. It's not only just a counseling tool that you can use with clients, but it literally helps you decode your dreams, because all of those numbers, colors, words are just a vibration of energy. And understanding kind of your own personal dream dictionary helps you decode your own personal dreams. So the idea is to not necessarily teach from the outside in, but to teach from the inside out. So there is the narrative of learning from the outside, from teachers, from books, from podcasts, but there's also this vast information that we come in with that we haven't fully tapped yet if we could learn from the inside and bring it out. And that's where dreams became really important, because they were not only spiritual and practical, but they were leading us into a higher level of consciousness that we could use in our everyday reality. So many people who come to me and say, I don't dream. Well, yes, you do dream, but you haven't discovered the ways yet to kind of unlock that and start to remember it. And when people first start to dream, they might just get a word, or they might just have a feeling, or they might only remember a color. That can tell you a tremendous amount. That's a starting point. That's like beginning the paragraph. And it's a beautiful place to start to learn and practice and keep moving forward, which kind of brings me to the 5 C's. I told you 4, but there are really 5. So what are the 5 C's? According to Graham, we all have challenges, all right? And in those challenges, we have a choice. And the choice is to have courage, the courage to commit to something that will help with change. Now, I can say that other ways. So I could say change requires commitment, to choose courage to meet a challenge. But those 5 C's were kind of the bedrock of a lot of her teachings. So I'll repeat them for you. It's challenge, choice, courage, commitment, and change. So what does all that bring? It brings a higher level of consciousness. She kind of always used her hands to describe what she called the uni world. And the uni world was the place where we're all one. We're each a different representation of great mystery, or the I am presence, or the Godhead, however you want to describe that. And a lot of the ways that I describe this in my teachings, and it's helpful even for the dream state, but it's helpful for past life and karmic situations as well, is imagine a disco ball. I hope most of you are old enough to imagine what a disco ball looked like. So it was, this ball of facets pointing out that created light. We're each one of those facets, but each dream is also a facet of our greater expansion of consciousness. So kind of the way it was explained to me is, when we die, we go back into this pool of energy, this higher mind, this consciousness, this eternal love. And from that place, in that galaxy of being, we can come back and be another facet on the disco ball if there's other things we are here to learn. Well, in the same way, the dream time, we go into the void at night. We go into all the expressions of different symbols, different archetypes, different sensorials, oddities, things that make sense, people we know, people we don't know. And we're able to come back out into our daytime and work on whatever facet that dream gave us for the next exploration of being conscious in our waking state. I'm finding a lot of people are coming to me now since coming out of COVID, saying that they're having these dreams that are very interdimensional, or it's almost like they're meeting up with people that they know, but they don't know how they know them, or they're crossing into dream spaces that seem, the energy's different, the colors are different, but they know this place. And I think that's part of moving up that spiral that we were talking about earlier of interdimensional awareness, because we are more than 3D. It goes up at least 7 levels, and we incorporate all of that at the same time, so that when we heal something here, what she said, we would heal it across time and space in the other existences of our awareness of being a facet on that disco ball. I know that's a lot. Does that make sense to people? Do people have any questions about that?
I just am taking that all in and really loving and appreciating that as an analogy. And I am wondering, are those 2 charts that you mentioned with the colors, the numbers, and the words, are they in your book?
No.
Okay.
It's a whole body of teaching that took me about 6 years to understand, because the way she described it, it's the universal. I'll use the astrology again as an analogy because it's easier that way. But these are not astrological charts. They're energetic gifts and skill sets you have within yourself, and latent talents that need to be awakened to become a whole person, to stand in the center of the wheel instead of on the outskirts, always looking in. But
so you would work with someone with those charts like an astrologer would work with an astrological chart.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. Because, like I said in the beginning, the astrological chart is the potential. Your individual astrological chart is where all those planets and signs fall in the houses. And then the transits of your chart are what happens situation to situation, year to year. And these charts are like that too. So if you can imagine 2 charts that go 12 charts deep.
Wow.
That's why it's really hard to teach it.
It's amazing that you have that knowledge.
I was just lucky. I understood it. It was like a math, I was horrible in mathematics in school. I never got it. But as soon as numbers became symbols and archetypes, I understood. I couldn't do algebra and geometry or any of that. But then when you learned about sacred geometry and you learned about certain archetypes and the Dreamtime and stuff, all of that started to make sense to me.
Beautiful.
I still don't. Okay, where are we going from here? How are we doing on time?
We're great. We're half an hour in.
I talk awfully fast. All right. So I said earlier that everybody has about 3 to 6 dreams a night. Not everybody remembers them. In part, that's due to our kind of sleep-deprived world. If you're not getting 7 to 8 hours sleep, you're really not in that theta to delta state where the dreaming is really a peaceful state for you. So there are 4 stages of dreaming, the way she taught it. So there's that transition from wakefulness to sleep. There's entering the light sleep. Stage 3 is about the deep sleep. It's dropping into more of a theta state, moving towards delta. And then stage 4 is REM sleep. REM sleep is rapid eye movement, where you go deep into the dream. And when that happens, people who are testing you in dream incubations will see rapid eyes. They'll see your heart rate change. Sometimes your muscles become paralyzed or twitch. Some of you, I'm sure, have had that experience of the leg kicking out and waking up startled. But the brain activity is really marked at that point, because what's happening is we're disengaging from the chakras and we're moving out the crown chakra. We're moving past the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is really important. It gets very calcified because of things like fluoride and certain things we eat and all the pollution that's in the air. And so there are meditations that are important to do to keep cleaning the pineal gland, because the pineal gland is our access out to higher dimensional states of consciousness. You can see the pineal gland is about the size of a pea, and it's shaped somewhat like a pine cone. So you see in a lot of traditions, in the past, you see pine cones represented. That represents a higher state of consciousness. Even the Vatican has a pine cone in the back in one of its gardens that represents that. So, so as you fall asleep, and these cycles are occurring every 90 minutes. So that's where you might have 3 to 6 dreams a night. So that first state that you're moving into, where you're transitioning from wakefulness to sleep, that's called the hypnagogic dream state. And in that dream state, you might experience visuals, auditory, other types of almost hallucinations, masks coming at you, faces. That's very normal. It's the disengaging that's happening. Then when you come back in, but the same thing happens as you're coming into waking in the morning, and that's called the hypnopompic dream state. So you've got the hypnagogic as you go into the dream time, and you've got the hypnopompic as you're coming out of the dream time. And both of those times are where many people, they think that they're in a deep dream, but they're not necessarily. What's happening is it's like you're outside of time and space, and you're getting all the information and you don't know what to do with the information. That's different than the dream time. The dream time is almost like a recorded narrative story, even if it doesn't make sense, that's being given to you. You with me so far? Okay. So I just want to show of hands. Have most of you experienced that hypnagogic dream state or the hypnopompic, where you see faces or you hear your name being called, or? Yeah, okay. All right. I'd like you just to take a breath. I've said a lot so far. It's feeling heady to me. I just want you to reground into your heart, because that's the pathway. The heart and the higher will are really the pathway. It's not the brain. The brain is not the function. Okay, just another couple. I feel some of you are all up here. I want you to take some breaths and come back down here. All right. At this point, I can go in 2 directions. I can either go into doing a meditation with you to help you find your dream ally, and then we can take a break, so that a 10-minute break, so that you can take a pee break and write it down. I'd really like you to write it down, because I'd like to discuss it when you come back online with those that are willing, no pressure. And then I'll give you a whole series of things of how to remember your dreams. I can either do that now and the meditation later. I would prefer to do the meditation now, but it's up to you guys. This is your time.
Doing the meditation sounds great. And then allowing people we can take a 10-minute break and people can write down what they received. And I think also if people are willing to share some things in the chat, that would be great too. So we'll do this meditation, and then Sandy will give us our homework for our 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and share. That sounds great.
And the good thing about that too is a meditation is moving you into a theta state. So it is the state before the actual dream state of delta. So it's good practice. Meditation is good practice for that. All right. So I'd like you all to kind of get in a comfortable position. And I'd really like you all to do this, please. I want you to all play, because this is really important. So again, I'd like you to do a Saman Shakwi, bringing the energy in, moving it through your body, grounding it into the earth. And then a Saiwa Chakri, bringing the energy up from the Earth Mother, the foundation of love on which we reside right now. Again, bringing it through your body and sending it into the cosmos, uniting heaven and earth, uniting your higher self with your corporal self. And now we're going to do a breath that prepares us for the liminal space and actually regulates the parasympathetic nervous system. So I'd like you to take a breath into the count of 9. And exhale from your mouth to the count of 13. And again, inhale to the count of 9. And exhale to the count of 13. One more time, into the count of 9. And out to the count of 13. Now I want you to orient yourself in your heart and imagine that there's a silver cord that goes between your heart and your pineal gland. Just imagine it. Don't worry about where it is. And now this is always important for the dream time. I would like you to set an intention to meet your dream ally and leave all expectations at the door. I want you to imagine that your feet are on a path, and it's a path of stars that's leading you into the void of the Milky Way. And each star becomes a step up. As you get closer to the void of the Milky Way, it appears almost like it's a cave or a tunnel. And without fear, because the tunnel is lit by your own inner light, you're walking through the tunnel, and up ahead you can see a glimmer of light. And when you get to the edge of the tunnel, it's like a cliff almost. I'd like you to sit down. Imagine yourself sitting down, and you see that expanse out in front of you of air and water and forests, of marshes and deserts. It's all there. It's all in creation. And it's full of animals of every sort, desert animals, woodland animals, full of insects and birds and reptiles and fishes in the streams and in the oceans before you. There's a Devic kingdom of fairies and elves and trolls and gnomes, leprechauns even. There are inter and multidimensional beings, etheric, solid, vapor. There are rock and crystal beings, plant and tree beings, mythical beings like dragons and centaurs and unicorns. There's a stairway of 12 steps that you see that leads down to a chair or a throne or a cut in the rock or a soft space on the ground. And I'd like you to take a breath and start to climb down the stairs. 12, 11, 10. Take another breath and orient yourself in your heart and make sure the silver cord is still going from your heart to your pineal gland. And continue. 9, 8, 7. And rest because there's so much in front of you, it's hard to believe. Everything that can be thought is created. And take another breath and make sure that you're oriented your heart and it's connected to a silver cord in your pineal. And we continue. 6, 5, and 4. Maybe you're disbelieving or your heart's racing a little or you're losing sight of the meditation. Just begin. Reorient yourself with a breath in the heart. There's no right or wrong to this. And make sure there's a connection. And then the last stairs, 3, 2, 1. And find yourself sitting in that chair or that rock indentation or on the ground or on the throne. And now you're going to allow one of those beings, animal, insect, bird, reptile, fish, Diva kingdom, interdimensional being, rock being, crystal being, plant being, tree being, mythical being. You cannot reach out and you cannot touch. Many might surround you or sniff at you, but it's literally the first one that touches you. Do not rush this. Again, do not reach out. Be aware. They choose you. You do not choose them. Just breathe the connection between heart and higher mind. They might touch your foot or your knee or your shoulder. You're not to touch them. Once you have been claimed, I want you to look into the eyes, even if they are only vague representations of eyes, or if they truly are the eyes. And you're going to ask the first question. The first question is, where are you stuck in your inability to remember your dreams? They might give you just one word or show you something. These are not long paragraphs and sentences. Where are you stuck in your inability to remember your dream? Second question. Where do you diminish your light in your waking state? They might show you a scene, give you a word, show you a person. Again, it's flashing. It's whatever comes first. Just note it. Where do you diminish your light in your waking state? Question number 3. What is your shadow self trying to teach you? Don't ignore, deny, or project onto somebody else whatever it shows you. What is your shadow self trying to teach you? You should have something from all 3 of those questions. I want you to thank this being, whatever it is, and ask it to help you in the dream time. All you have to ask it, please help me remember the dream time. And as you depart with gratitude for all the beings, liminal and solid, that are the creations of our imagination, that can be thought into being, turn and start to climb the stairs. 1, 2, 3. Take a breath. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Center and take a breath. 10, 11, 12. You're starting to walk back down through the tunnel or the cave. Nothing to be afraid of. It's lit by your own inner light. You continue to walk until you realize that you're in the void of the creation of the Milky Way, and you start walking down the star steps, breathing, relaxed, aware, having information to work with individually. And now find yourself in your physical body. Very gently start to move your fingers and your feet. Take a deep breath, coming back more fully into your body. Twisting your head gently. Activating your hips a little bit in your chair. And when I count to 3, come back into this time, this space, this breath, this podcast. 1, 2, 3. And I'd like you to take the time to write. I will repeat those 3 questions. Where are you stuck in your ability to remember your dream? Where do you diminish your light in your waking state? What is your shadow self trying to impart to you, teach you? So let's take 10, 15 minutes, take a pee break, get some water, write this out, and come back with your questions, please.
Great. I have that we're pretty much on the hour, so let's come back at 10 after.
Okay.
And take some time to write these down. I put the questions in the chat. And we'll see everybody in 10 minutes.
Okay.
So should we start with people sharing what they received from their
Yeah, I'd love that.
the journey that we took? So if you'd like to share, I'm going to let people unmute themselves if you want to share what you got on your journey, who your dream ally was, and what you learned from them. If anybody would like to share, if you raise your hand with the reactions button, I can see that your hand is raised and I can unmute you. Okay, Robert.
Part of the problem I had was I kind of thought of an animal that was coming. I didn't know that I really was touched by one, but then when I came out of the dream, what came to me was that it was a seal. But the three reasons were I wasn't getting enough sleep, I don't go to bed early enough. The thing that inhibits me in my regular life has been fear. And what the shadow is trying to teach me is how to have humor and delight.
Which is what the seal represents.
Yeah.
The seal represents playfulness and humor, and it's also in the ocean, which is about going deep into the void of your own emotions and seeing why you're not as playful with yourself. Again, that's not a criticism, it's just an opportunity to look at that within yourself. And the seal also comes on land, so your emotions can be grounded and then reconcretized into a different framework for yourself. Sleep is really important. If we're not getting enough sleep, we're just not having the ability to go into those 3 to 6 times of the dream time.
Yeah, I got a pretty good understanding of all of that. And I think that the fear aspect for me is to get out of the fear of dying. It's like, hey, I die every night to this reality.
Yep.
I know that God is. I've had several experiences. I know the divine is. I know that I'm divine. I know all of those things.
Yep.
And I've had a diagnosis of cancer, and that really put the fear into me. But it was for good reason, because it made me look at dying. Yeah, it's just to have the humor and the delight and to have some fun. It's like just to let the fear is just waking me up.
And I don't mean to diminish at all the fear that you're going through with your diagnosis, but fear is the ultimate thing that holds us to a place where we don't feel we have choices, because really we don't die. The soul essence of who we are, as I know you know that, doesn't die. Just these corporal forms pass. And fear is a huge inhibitor for us to be able to move through the bardo. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. It's the bardo state that allows us to move out of the fear and into more consciousness, which is why paying attention to the little death, the dreams, are helpful in that process that we're all going to go through. We're all going to go through that.
That's what I'm really understanding.
Thank you for sharing that, Robert. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Robert. So Sadia has her hand raised.
I can't see her. Oh, there you are.
Thank you, Sarah. That was Sandra, sorry. That was really, really interesting for me to experience. I have a lot of resistance to my dream time. And so I had what I feel is an interdimensional dragon eel type of being swirl around my pelvis and come up to face me. And she felt very powerful, and she told me, she showed me where in my physical body I was stuck in my waking life, and didn't give me like a word or a pattern, so I know where it is, and then we'll go from there. And what was really interesting to learn was that my shadow self is trying to teach me to have a sharp tongue and to learn about language, and the importance of the words I choose and this way I articulate it. And that was really cool to see how it all came together. And it's interesting that this being is she seems to be like this mystical, like visionary type of person. And so it was cool to see how the theme of my shadow self came down to this one thing, like a sharp tongue. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, so I really wanted to share that.
Well, a couple of things come up, if you don't mind me sharing, as I hear you talking about this, is
yeah, I love it.
the dragon lines are all opening up again right now. I mean, that's part of the process that we're going through. And there are ley lines and dragon lines all over the earth. But what it circled around was your solar plexus, right? Excuse me, your sacral
Pelvis.
plexus.
Yeah.
And the sacral plexus is the void. It's the place of creation. It's the place of manifestation, of birth, of sensuality and sexuality. And even the sharp tongues can be sharp without being mean. I mean, if you look at Kali, you know, Kali's got her tongue out. She's chewing the head off of one baby and suckling the other. It's that we have these diverse parts of ourselves that need to be brought into balance. And that's what the dream time is about. It's about self-development, and journeying in that dream space helps us get to the eye of ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was really powerful.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for the feedback on that as well. That's really helpful and opened up a whole new area of discovery for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Does anybody else have something from that journey that they would like to share? And have Sandy support you around? Yes, Carrie.
Carrie, we can't hear you.
There you go. There you go.
Well, that took 3 tries. Good morning. So mine was a lot of information, so I did a lot of writing after or during the break, but Eagle came to me, and it was a reminder of previous journeys where I asked the same question and then I'm not acting on the information. So you know, where am I stuck in my ability to remember my dreams is all 3 questions came to the same conclusion, but basically that I'm being given this wonderful information, and then because of fear, finances, or 1,000 things, I'm choosing not to travel on the path that I've been shown. Okay. And so the answer to that was primarily stress. Stress is the reason that I'm having difficulty remembering dreams. And where do I diminish my light in my waking state? That was also a very complex bunch of visuals and things. But again, it's distraction is the reason. And I'm allowing myself to be distracted. So the answer there, though, was to discern between what might be a distraction, but by discerning between what is joyful and what is really distracting my light. So instead of eliminating things that are joyful because they seem like a distraction, right? That I need more joy and less stress. So having to filter those things out to boost my light up. And then my shadow self is really telling me over and over again that my feet are moving in 2 different directions and I need to put them on the same path. It was a lot of info. I was even bawling at one point. So thanks for letting me share.
Well, let me, do you mind me offering you some further information on that?
Yeah, please.
So the tension you mentioned and the distraction you mentioned takes me back to the C's, the 5 C's.
Yes.
The one you're stuck on is commitment to yourself. And if your feet are walking 2 paths in different directions, unless you know how to do the splits real well, you're going to be in constant pain and more tension and more anxiety. So go back to the commitment. I want you to work with the word commitment.
Okay.
Okay. And just from every angle that comes up in you, what does commitment bring up? How old are you? What scenario do you remember from childhood or from a past life? Just keep working on that. Because are you aware of the tarot?
Yes.
Okay, so take out the lust card in the tarot and put that up in front of you on your bedside or on the refrigerator for the next week, because the lust card is not about wanton sexuality. It's about the French word luster. It's about our bright and shiny self and how we stay in the center of that. So at least on my deck, what you see is this naked woman clothed in gold, riding the seven-headed beast, but reaching for the grail or the heartbeat of the mother. That's her commitment to herself. And she's not paying attention to all the distractions because she's creatively committing in a new way to her path. So just use that for a while and see what comes out of that for you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Carrie. I have a couple other questions. If anybody else would like to share, please raise your hand so I can see you. And while you're thinking about whether you want to share, actually, I see Heidi. I'll get to you in 1 second, Heidi. There's a question in the chat that says, I just had my first experience of a lucid dream. And I think it says last night. This was exciting, but just as I realized it and began to try to consciously be in my dream, I woke up.
Yeah, that's
So
so normal.
do you have any recommendations for holding on to the dream state and staying in it once you realize you're dreaming?
Practice, practice, practice. It's like even, you know, I get to places where I don't remember dreams for a week. I know I'm having them, but I don't remember them. And part of that is because I just need to disengage. Because when I dream, I could be in bed for 15, 20, 30 minutes writing out my dreams. They're that long sometimes. And I'll get to this later on, but according to Graham, we're having the same dream every night with different archetypes, different symbols. And the bottom line is always to become more conscious of your light, that you're more than just this physical being having this experience in this world, that you're really the I of the I am presence. And I know that sounds kind of new agey and wooey, but it's practice. Lucid dreaming, a lot of people have trouble with that. There's some really good teachers out there that do lucid dreaming, but we scare ourselves when we realize the potential of what a lucid dream is. William Bullman is a wonderful teacher on lucid dreaming and OBEs. Charlie Morley is another great teacher. He does it more from a Buddhist tradition, but he's really a good teacher. Jade Shaw is another fabulous teacher. She's in the UK. Charlie and Jade are both in the UK. The Monroe Institute does a lot in terms of with some of their dream teachers. So there are other places you can go, but that always happens. You realize, oh my God, I'm lucid dreaming. This is great. Boom, it's gone. But that's kind of the body having a physical reaction against that reality. So keep doing it.
I'm just typing in the chat. William Bullman, Charlie Morley, Jade Shaw, and the Monroe Institute are all interesting places for support with lucid dreaming. I have one other question. I want to get back to Heidi. I haven't forgotten you. There's a question from someone who'd like to know how she could learn about the Iroquois law of peace and its relationship to the Constitution. Do you know if there are ways to read about that?
Yeah, you can Google that. It's the Iroquois Confederacy. It was made up of 5 tribes, and then a 6th tribe later joined them. It's called the Great Law of Peace, and it's based on our Constitution is based off of it, which is generally a federalist understanding and the ability to have different segments of the government be accountable for certain situations. Like we have a 3 system. They're not always working right now real well, but we have the House, we have the Senate, and we have the Justice Department, the court, the justices. So they're supposed to be entities that counter each other, but staying in alignment with freedoms. And that's what the Peace League was all about. So yeah, just Google it. There's plenty of information out there on it.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, Heidi.
Hi, Heidi. You're muted, Heidi.
There we go. Hello.
Hello.
So my experience was somewhat similar to Carrie's. My message for where am I getting stuck was definitely stress. And I saw some just images of stress. Where am I diminishing my light was more of a physical sensation in my body, almost like seeing different places in my body that I hold stress. And then the thing that the shadow is teaching, I could see those different places of stress, like becoming light and shining out.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So one of the best things that you might try is that parasympathetic breathing. Breathing in to the count of 9, out to the count of 13, because that regulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which stops the tension in the body. And then speaking to all those places in your body, note what they were. And, you know, maybe it was your liver or your rib or your ear. Talk to each one of them like they're sitting across the table from you and ask them why they're trying to get your attention, because they'll probably give you deeper information.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay, I think the sharing has come to a close.
All right.
I got one more.
All right.
Okay, Cynthia, let me make sure you can unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Sandra, Tricia, thanks for bringing this to all of us. It takes a lot of courage to, share, and like, obviously it's all like unconscious things. So I'm going to take a step forward and be brave. And so share some of the things that connect actually to a couple of weeks ago when we were like pulling cards for each other. And then, the card of acceptance came up for me. And I was at that moment thinking that I just have to accept outward circumstances as they are. But now after this beautiful meditation, it came and that it was all about self-acceptance. And just kind of like having that acceptance, and a theme that is currently in my dreams always is rejection. Always feeling like I am in a situation and that people are giving their backs to me, and that like I just, I have a hard time integrating myself to a group or to like just feeling accepted. And it's right there in my subconscious. And that's why I feel like it's just constantly manifested in my dreams. So I guess, that's the acceptance, I think, that I'm not giving to myself is what is being reflected in my subconscious, and maybe what I'm experiencing in my conscious life. I'm not sure, but it has to do with this, inner sensation that I want to become Cynthia, the person connected to energetics, to healing, to all those arts. But there's this outward persona that I still can't disconnect myself from, which is like this other person connected to the arts. But the guide that came in through this beautiful meditation was Jaguar. And I've always seen Jaguar in my dreams as well. Like even like when I was a little girl, just one time he just jumped on my chest and woke me up. And he right now just came and softly put his paw on my, thighs and said, "I'm here for you." So how can I connect more to his energy for that acceptance, for that transformation, and for that true just acceptance of myself into the world?
Okay. So you said a couple of things that I'd like to offer back and share with you. The first thing is self-rejection is one of the primary things we all deal with from infancy. Even if we came from a wonderful family of origin, no matter what order we fall in as children, we have different parents. So what do I mean by that? How many children in your family?
My one daughter. I have one daughter, and I have, 2 siblings, my brother and my sister.
But where do you fall in that sibling order?
I am the oldest one.
Okay. So I'm the oldest too. So, so the oldest child comes in as the third parent. The oldest child is, in fact, the children that follow don't come just because of the 2 parents. They come because of the first child as well. because there's a karmic or a soul group or a family connection with all of those energies. But to come in as the first child, you have totally different parents than the middle child and the youngest. Why? Because you were put in a position of authority, probably before you recognized what that meant. Parents at every stage of every child has a different birthing process. They are financially different at certain points in the family growth. So every child has a different parent. And at some point, every child feels rejection from the parents. There's a process I do that is very similar to soul retrieval. It's called ART. It's alchemical regression therapy. It's based on all my years of doing soul retrieval. And that's always where I start. I always start at self-rejection because that started someplace else in your constellation of growth. That's the first thing. Second thing is Jaguar. And I understand this one too, but big cat energy is really hard for women to have because they stand out, they're powerful, they might not always express their voice, but they have a certain continence about them. And my teachers, my indigenous teachers told me women who have big cat energy often get blamed for things that's not their fault, because especially men, and I'm not denigrating men, we all have a divine masculine and a divine feminine within, rejects that strength. So you're rejecting your strength, right, of self-acceptance based on self-rejection. And all these people in your world that are rejecting you are mirrors of what you're trying to get to. So it's not like they're, excuse my French, assholes in your life. They're only mirrors that are helping you define something stronger in yourself. And they love you enough to do that, even if they don't consciously realize they're doing that, because you wrote the contract to have them teach you something. I know that's a lot to take in. And that one took me a long time for all kinds of reasons, but think about it that way for a little bit. Okay.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely brilliant. I'm going to listen to that maybe 100 more times.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia.
That's definitely a benefit of recording these calls, for
Yes.
sure. You can listen to them again and again. So another hand is up, Annette.
Thank you so much. I hesitated to share, but I feel it's really important and something that I really need to do more myself. I had a very, very vivid experience doing this. And right away, with all the creatures that are around, one came forward immediately. And I've never connected with any kind of mythical creature before, but this was a beautiful white unicorn with rainbow wings and a rainbow horn, and immediately told me its name was Anastash, and came right up to me and took its snout and touched my hand with the sound. You kept saying, don't touch it, but it was touching my hand. So I couldn't stop it from doing that. And it wanted me to get on its back. It kept saying, come on, let's go.
Okay.
And I knew that if I did, who knows where I would have gone, but I really wanted to, but I really hesitated. So then I asked Anastasia the questions. And the first question, and it was he, she, it wasn't one or the other, said fear. Fear was what was keeping me stuck. And then what was diminishing my light is people that are very close to me. I allow that to happen. And thirdly, my shadow self was trying to tell me, just be your light, shine it as bright as you can, and don't diminish it for anyone. So as we were leaving, Anastasia was following me, and I said, I don't think you can come with me back here. I said, well, will you meet me in Dreamtime? And Anastasia said, yes. And he said, and Anastasia said, I'll take you on a journey. So I'm going to set that intention tonight to meet up with Anastasia and go for a ride. Hopefully I'll remember. I do dream vividly, but very rarely do I remember specific dreams unless I know it's really, really important. But I wake up thinking, wow, that was important, but then it all goes away.
Which again is part of commitment, writing it down.
Right.
But I would suggest for the next 7 nights, your intention before you go to bed at night, after you do the intake to the count of 9, exhale to the count of 13, 3 times, is to get on her back and fall asleep, just being on their back,
Okay,
and you'll be taken.
great.
But
That's
write
exciting.
write it down.
I will. Thank you so much.
The rainbow too is really important. The rainbow is a connection between heaven and earth. A lot of traditions use the rainbow
Right.
as that connection. And unicorns were very special because unicorns were the potential of what can be outside of the framework of our fear of concretization.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
I love listening to these stories. They're so great.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention something, ask you about something from your book that I noticed. And there were so many times where you mentioned dreams throughout your book.
Mhm.
And each one is either giving you a snapshot of something that's going to happen, or in retrospect, you look back and you say, oh my gosh, that's what that was about.
Yep.
And so I wonder if you would just say a little bit about dreams as premonitions, or dreams as, you mentioned a few times in your book about really learning to trust your intuition, that we all have it.
Right.
And so can you say a little bit about that as dreams sort of foretelling something, or looking back and seeing how your dreams were predicting something that you didn't know was going to happen?
Dreams take us outside of time and space, and time and space ground us to third dimensional reality. But like I said in the beginning of this, we're more than just these corporal physical beings. We are beings of light that occupy beyond time and space and breath, beyond dimensionality. And that interdimensional space is what we're aiming for in consciousness, because it's remembering and learning about more of who we are on multiple levels. What holds us to this 3D is what everybody's been talking about: fear, self-rejection, anger, abuse. We've all been the victim in one life, and we've all been the victimizer, because we're on that single spectrum of energy that goes, from dense to refined. So it's always trying to find the balance. It's always trying to find where you can pull your past, the dreams you've had in the past, where you can pull the recognition of what that was trying to teach you forward. And the precognitive dreams of the future are trying to pull you towards that new awareness, that new understanding, that new opening of yourself to another level of consciousness. It's all energy. It's always moving. It's always about trying to get us to a higher level of consciousness. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. And it makes me more committed, to use one of the 5 C's, to journaling.
Yes.
About my dreams, because I have been noticing that I went through a period last year where I woke up every night at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I was basically told to journal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I journaled in the middle of the night, awake,
Yep.
but at 2 in the morning for several months. And now that I look back on what I wrote, it didn't make sense at the time, but it does now. I look back at what I was writing and I say, oh, that's what that meant. I didn't have any idea what it meant at the time, but I have a very clear understanding now.
Because we're always trying to catch up with ourselves. If we are all that is, we're always trying to catch up with what is that.
Can you say that again? That was so great. Yeah, if we are all that is, we're always trying to catch up
with what that is.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this might be a good time to get in. If nobody has any other questions, it might be a good time to get into different ways to remember your dreams.
Sure. Sounds perfect. I don't see any hands raised. If I do, I'll let you know.
Okay. So I'm just going to give you a variety of different things from a variety of different teachers. So I had, for a brief time, a Toltec teacher called Twylah, and that's Tlaak A-E-L-E-L. And that means counselor to the council. So one of the things he would suggest is to get a glass of water and to program it with your intent in a similar fashion that Dr. Emoto talks about when he programs water or the food you're eating or whatever. So the intent has to be very clear. It has to be short and clear. It cannot be, I want to know how I'm going to win $1 million and meet the woman of my dreams, the man of my dreams, how many kids am I going to have? No, it's not a litany of desires. It's a clear intent. How do I let go of my fear? How do I commit to writing down my dreams? Anyway, you get the picture. You drink half of the water after you put your intent into it, because your body is made up of mainly water. The glass is water. Water is about the emotional body. The emotional body pulls us to the past. The past is trying to inform the now. You're going to wake up because you're going to have to pee. So when you wake up, you write down whatever you get. Even if you don't think this was a dream, you write down a color, a feeling, a word, because that's going to start something. If you sleep through the night, in the morning, when you wake up, you tap the glass 3 times. The intention that was in the water will speak to the other half of the intention that you drank and will give you further information. I always tell my clients, if they can, give their dream a title, because really the title is the essence of what the dream is about. Okay, again, all of these are going to take practice. If you're lucky enough to have it happen the first time, that's lovely, but then you'll probably go another couple of weeks and not have it happen again. Okay, so another suggestion by a teacher named Oshana Fastwolf was to put a feather next to your bed, because the feather has to do with astral projecting, bringing the awareness out of the body, and set the intention to fly like a bird and go to wherever it is that you're trying to get information around. So for example, if it's about a person, whether you're sending them healing or you want more information, see if you can get a picture of that person and leave it next to the feather and intend to have a conversation. Maybe you want to forgive that person. Maybe you want to be forgiven by that person. Your astral body is having the conversation with the astral mind of the other person, and see what comes out of that. Some really beautiful things can come out of that. Graham always suggested that you state your intentions 3 times and you write it down. And you put it next to you. And when you wake up, don't think, I'm going to remember the dream. 9 times out of 10, you won't remember most of the specifics. I don't like sleeping with a cellular device next to us, but we have these contraptions now. And a lot of times, if you don't want to turn on the light and get a pen and pencil and write, you can speak it into your phone and then just record it in the morning. Technology does disrupt the dream time. So if you're in a house and you're sleeping in a room and your computer's on, or even on sleep, or the TV's in the room, those things will jar your body. The electronics will jar your body. In the way she described it, in many Native North American traditions, what they would do, not so much in the current, because a lot of the Native populations have been decimated, but in the past, the family would gather in the morning and everybody would share the dream. Because what happens when we do that is you start to remember certain things. I'm sure that you've been driving to work or making breakfast or doing the laundry, and suddenly you think, oh, I remember I had a dream about such and such last night. Okay. So in the gathering, it would help counsel the family. It would help give each other perspective of what the other person was going through. If it was a big dream, the whole tribe would be involved, because a lot of dreamers in indigenous tribes were precognitive dreamers that could see things coming. The buffalo were coming, or the enemy was coming, or the cavalry was right around the corner. So big dreams were always shared tribally, not just by family. There was another teacher, he was Selagi. Selagi is what we call Cherokee. And he taught at night, if you dreamed you got a snake bite, you treated yourself for a snake bite in the morning. And the reason for that is the dream state is as important as our waking state, because the waking state is full of illusions and delusions, but the dream offers you more perceptual openness. And it's the perceptual openness that starts to raise your consciousness. So I would ask him, well, the snake really didn't bite you, so you don't have poison. And he said, if you believe that it's just a dream, maybe that's true. But if you believe that your dream is a more important part of your waking ability to become more conscious, then you better treat yourself for the snake bite, which I always found fascinating. It turned my world upside down in terms of how to look at the dream time.
I love that, because it means that you're taking your dreams equally importantly as you're taking your waking life, that it's one and the same thing.
And that's,
oh, I got bit by a snake last night, I better treat that.
but they all believe that it is one and the same, that consciousness and unconsciousness are just a nanosecond apart. Evilness and right life is just a nanosecond apart in terms of the choice you make. The dream time and the waking state are all part of you. So everything gives you the information. And if you're making an intention, and if you're paying attention, and if you want to become more aware, then it's important to see how the dream time and the waking state merge.
Or don't, as the case may be.
Or don't. Exactly.
As the woman said earlier, a lot of times you know what your dreams are telling you, you're just not doing it. You're just not following instruction.
Right. And that goes back to commitment.
Yeah.
In the Egyptian tradition, they believed dreams were oracles that were bringing messages from the gods. And the Neteru in the Egyptian mythology, the Neteru weren't gods and goddesses per se, they were cycles of time and space. And so it was information coming from beyond the veil. So they would do a lot of dream incubation, and dream incubation is really cool. They would do it, the priests and priestesses would do it to prepare themselves for the 3 days of ascension, where they would leave their body and traverse the universe, get information, and then come back into their physical body and be able to have, to be able to share what they got in the all that is. The Greeks used that a lot too. Asclepius was the dream god, and a lot of people would come to the Asclepion to be healed. So the Asclepion were dream incubator caves that people would sleep in. They talked to the priests and priestesses about what they dreamed in the morning, and the priests and priestesses were able to diagnose and help them deal with whatever the situation was. I've used that in my dream workshops. A dream incubation, everybody sleeps with their head towards the center, and you set a collective intention. And then in the morning, everybody shares what they remembered or the first word that came to them or feeling. And that becomes the whole answer from the collective for that particular dream intention. I taught a couple of years in Ireland, the dream course. And one of the things that was really unique about the groups that they loved at the end is everybody had to bring a dream, and we decoded the dream on the wisdom wheels for them. individually what the dream meant for them, and they would all share. It was an intimate group, but you really had to open and trust each other. But then at the end, they all read what they learned about themselves from the dream, and it became a collective understanding of why that group had gathered for that particular workshop. So like Jung says, it is personal and it is collective. And it's quite fascinating when you see the look on people's faces going, oh my God, now I remember my dream was saying that too, or whatever. Kind of going back to what Graham was talking about when the family would gather. And then the Tibetan monks have a really unique yoga practice for dream memory. There's lots of books on this too. And they're all working in the bardo. And the bardo, I think of it as layers, but it's not. But there are 6 states of the bardo. So the bardo helps you pass beyond death consciously, which is the earmark of what we're all trying to do when we listen to our dreams, so we don't have to repeat karmic patterns. So there's the bardo of life, which is birth. There's the bardo of the dream, which is what we're talking about today, the little death. There's the bardo of meditation, because that takes you into a theta state, which opens up the liminal spaces so that at night when you go into the delta state, you have more access potentially to the energies of your dream. There's the bardo of dying, okay, both in the little death and in life. The bardo of dhammata, which is the bardo of reality. What is reality? Do any of us really know what reality is? We have our set understandings for ourselves personally, what we think it's about, but everybody's got an opinion. And then there's the bardo of existence, which is the bardo of becoming. And this is in the Tibetan tradition where you get to come back into the dream, which is 3D reality, or you pass through that disco ball that I was talking about earlier, back to the all that is, to the one, to the great mystery, to the I am presence. And you don't keep repeating karmic patterns. And when I talk about karma, I'm not just talking about Earth. I don't mean to go against anybody's religious system, but there are multiple galaxies and there are multiple planets where there is life in some form that looks similar to us and looks nothing like us. And they're going through their whole spectrum too of the wheel from denseness to refinement. And they're also all trying to get back to the I am, because we all come from that. We come from that creation of, in the beginning, there was the word. And the word rippled out across the void, and then there was light, and we're made of light. That's a lot, I know. Yeah, I see. Who's that, Connie over there?
Shaking her head, yep. Yeah, that's beautiful.
So that's my share for today. If you take anything from it, whether it's a sentence or a better way of looking at yourself, that's the goal. And if you can dream, dream, because the Buddhists say, are we the dream or are we the dreamer?
So I really want to thank you. Everybody's saying thank you in the chat. And someone said that her mother asked her in the morning when she was a child, would always ask her if she had a dream and would have her write it down. And she said she still does it with her nieces.
That's fabulous.
So I think that's really sweet. So I just want everyone, I say thank you to everyone for joining us
Yes,
today. And
thank
thank you
you.
so much, Sandy, for being here. And I see a number of people are already saying, how do we work with her? How do we work with her? So please, we're really encouraging people to use the directory. And so if you go to shamansdirectory.com and click on Find a Shaman, you can put Sandy's name in the search bar and she'll come up. And there's a button that says Contact this shaman. And you just click on that button and it will take you right to Sandy. So, I encourage, yeah.
May I ask something? I write a dream blog every month, and I've run out of dreams from the people who send me dreams. If any of you have a dream you want decoded, I never give your name. I just give an intro. I do your dream exactly like you send it to me, and then I decode it. And I'd be happy to do that if it doesn't feel like an intrusion. The person who knows the dream the best is you, but if I can offer some information and the decodings that help, I write one every single month.
That's fantastic. And so that's at starwalkervisions.com. You can contact Sandy there. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody. I loved this.
Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. See you next time.
See
Bye-bye.
you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.